In the midst of ancient Greece, somewhere in the rocky islands scattered across the Mediterranean Sea, there lived creatures who were once something far more beautiful. They had been companions to Persephone herself, the beloved goddess, known for her warmth and light. But everything changed the day Persephone was taken. When Hades seized Persephone and pulled her into the underworld, her companions could do nothing to stop it. And Demeter, goddess of the earth and Persephone's grieving mother, did not forgive that failure. Her curse was swift and total. The women who had once served her daughter were twisted into something unrecognizable. Their upper bodies stayed human, but from the waist down, they became creatures of the wild, either bearing the talons and wings of a bird of prey or the dark tail of a fish. What had been graceful was now monstrous. What had been full of warmth was now full of loss. But the cruelest part of the curse was not the transformation of their bodies. It was what happened to their voices. Rocks, wreckage, and silence. To me, this is one of the most haunting parts of the Siren story. They did not choose to become what they became. Their most treasured quality, the thing that made them who they were, was stripped from them and turned into something that only causes suffering. That is a different kind of tragedy than simple punishment. That is erasure. The Sirens made their home on isolated islands near Sicily, surrounded by jagged rocks just beneath the waterline. Day after day, night after night, they sang to the ships passing by, and ship after ship went down. Their song was not just music, it was grief. It was rage at a world that had cursed them for something they had no power to prevent. And somewhere buried inside that rage was longing for the life they once had, for the purpose they had lost. That mix of emotions is what made their song so impossible to resist. It did not just appeal to the ears. It reached into something deeper, something every person carries, the part that wants to be fully seen and understood. Sailors who heard it felt, in that moment, like the song was meant for them alone. The waters around the Siren Islands became a graveyard, and the Sirens, surrounded by all that destruction, became more and more locked into the identity the curse had forced on them. What might have started as grief slowly hardened into something else entirely. Their song, at its core, touched the deepest desires of whoever heard it. Not just a craving for beauty, but a longing for something the listener could never quite name. That nameless wanting was the trap. The moment a sailor leaned toward it, the moment he let himself believe that sound was something real, he could reach, the rocks were already waiting. Even the strongest man stood no chance once the song was in their ears. That is the point the myth seems to want to make. Willpower alone is not enough when the thing pulling at you knows exactly where you are most vulnerable. But not everyone fell. Two figures from Greek mythology found a way through, and each of them took a completely different approach. The first was Odysseus, hero of the Trojan War. He had been warned by the goddess Circe about what the Sirens could do, and he took that warning seriously. Before his ship reached their waters, he ordered every member of his crew to plug their ears with beeswax. None of them would hear a single note, but Odysseus himself wanted to listen. He had them tie him to the mast with strict orders not to untie him no matter what he said or did. What followed was remarkable. Odysseus heard the song in full. He felt the pull of it, felt it so strongly that he begged and screamed to be set free. But the ropes held, his crew heard nothing, and the ship passed through without a single casualty. Odysseus survived the Sirens not because he was stronger than everyone else, but because he understood his own weakness well enough to plan around it. That kind of self-awareness, knowing what you cannot trust yourself with and preparing accordingly, is its own form of courage. The second was Orpheus, the greatest musician in all of Greek mythology. He sailed with the Argonauts, and when their ship passed the Siren Islands, he did not reach for beeswax or rope. He reached for his lyre. Sometimes the most effective response to something destructive is not to fight it directly, but to replace it with something worth turning toward. Together, these two encounters changed something. The Sirens had built their entire existence around being irresistible. When it turned out they were not, something in them broke. If anyone ever heard their song and survived it all, they would not. When that prophecy was fulfilled, the Sirens did not rage against it. They accepted it. They let the sea take them. Their end was quiet compared to the chaos they had spent so long creating, and that quietness is something. All that destruction, all those years of pulling ships onto the rocks, had never given them what they were really looking for. It had only deepened their isolation. Their final act was not revenge or defiance. It was letting go. The deeper you look at the Siren story, the more it feels like a myth about what happens when pain has nowhere to go. The Sirens were wronged. They were punished for a failure that was not entirely their fault, and the punishment was disproportionate and permanent. That injustice was real. But the path they chose in response, turning their suffering outward and destroying everything they touched, did not heal anything. It only extended the tragedy further and further until finally it consumed them too. That pattern is something the ancient myths return to again and again. Suffering that is processed through destruction tends to grow, not shrink. And the people caught in that cycle often find, too late, that the walls they built around themselves have become their prison. What Odysseus and Orpheus represent, in contrast, is not invincibility. Neither of them was immune to the Sirens' power. What they had was a plan, a purpose strong enough to hold on to when everything else was pulling them away. Odysseus was going home. Orpheus was making music worth listening to. Those things were enough to get them through. The Siren myth does not offer an easy answer to suffering. It does not say that pain can be avoided or that loss will always make sense. What it does say, quietly and clearly, is that the choices made in the middle of that pain matter enormously. The Sirens had a gift that could have meant something. Instead, it became the instrument of their own undoing. In the end, the story of the Sirens is not just about monsters on the rocks. It is about what happens when loss is never truly faced, when grief is turned into something sharp and aimed outward, and when the only meaning left is destruction. Their song was real. Their pain was real. But pain, no matter how deep, does not justify becoming the source of someone else's ruin. And the myth, for all its age, still carries that truth without needing to raise its voice.